Hi, I'm Eric Schmicker with our next episode of the Tipton Thrives Podcast, and today I'm joined by Steven Thompson, manager of the pool here in the city of Tipton. I'm really excited about this episode. Steven, to start, the pool celebrated a birthday.
It did. 87 years old.
Wow, it's looking good for 87.
It is. I think the city of Tipton's been fortunate to have had a long-running history of aquatic recreation that's been supported by our community. 87 years old.
Now, for a small community, it's not uncommon to go through these challenges. You know, you mentioned being here for 87 years. That is a milestone. Even my hometown of Winnemac, Indiana, has abandoned its pool and shut it down. Elwood shut down its pool and it's resurrected it back. Yep. What do you think has led to that success in Tipton and just that consistent support that it's received?
Yeah, I think you pointed out a couple key things there. You know, there have been a couple instances in the aquatic recreation landscape that have been scary for professionals. 2008 was one where we saw a lot of pools close and not reopen. I think that we've, as a city, former mayors, we've done a really good job of protecting what we have without outgrowing what our community values. You know, I think when you look at why our pool is been successful, why it is attractive to people from other communities who come here, is we are still a community pool the same way we were in 1968. Kids can still ride their bike to the pool. Yeah. Parents can bring their kids to the pool and see them from across the way, and oftentimes they know the lifeguards. The lifeguards also teach their kids swim lessons. So there is this, I think, completely cohesive community aspect to our pool that makes it a little bit unique in that sense.
Yeah, so I've heard you say that phrase before, that Tipton is still that community pool that it was in yesteryear. And that's what you mean?
Absolutely.
That from a perspective of from a facility, parents can still maintain visual sight lines with their child. From a lifeguard perspective, they know these students or the families that work. So that's what you're talking about.
Absolutely.
From that perspective.
And I think, we've done a good job of having, kind of our own little ecosystem to regenerate lifeguards. And what I mean by that is, previously when I was with Tipton Community School Corporation, there was a pathway for them to take a lifeguard training class as a high school student, and they were a member of the swim team. And so you see those pathways, or at least that's something that I tried to create, were those pathways so that, a kid who's coming to the pool now with the Boys and Girls Club, for example, a good interaction with one of our staff members may lead them to aspire to be a lifeguard one day. And it's continuing that. Yeah. It's continuing that to keep things going.
That's really great leadership, I have to say, from your perspective, that you have created these opportunities that in a scenario where most people don't look at the position of lifeguard as a quote, I would say career, but that the kids are having these interactions, and then they go, wow, maybe one day I could be a lifeguard. And you create the systems within the schools that the swimmers then can become lifeguards. The staff is really something that you've been proud of, and I think this community has appreciated, that I do think is possibly unique for this environment. So can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think I think one thing, especially this year, that I've tried to do is try to empower from within the staff that I have. I think that if it's a transactional relationship for them, where they come in, they get a check, they go home, there's not much buy-in for them as a staff member, and there's not much buy-in for them as a community member. So one thing that I've tried to instill is some layers of leadership within my staff this year. Having kind of a tier of head lifeguards that have responsibilities that are above a regular lifeguard. Delegating things to my assistant managers that I've not delegated to them in the past. And I'm really, really proud of kind of the way that they've taken on those additional leadership roles. And it fosters upward mobility within our staff, because we've got lifeguards now who are second or third year lifeguards who are looking at those positions. And those are things that can lead to, when they get into college, that's additional experience that they would have for college and future careers. Yeah, that we're trying to foster at the Tipton City Pool. So I think that's pretty important.
So you find that these students actually want to aspire or to assume, take on more responsibility in this environment.
Yeah, and that's, I see other aquatic professionals and other pool managers struggle with that within their staff, and I'm always a little. I'm not surprised that we don't have any issues, in that regard. But I think again, it's a community aspect. Our guards, they're excited to come to work. They enjoy coming to work. They will hang out after work. They'll go play sand volleyball. They're working on like an end of the year thing right now. So, I've worked in some different concepts of athletic development or student development, but I think staff development is really important for keeping a successful system in place.
Yeah. Well, it matches everything that I've heard. My interactions with students and the times I've visited the school, just talking with students on a variety of topics, the main line of feedback that I get from them is their willingness to be engaged, their willingness to be involved, their willingness to take on more responsibilities. What you have shared, matches all of that I've heard. So it's not just talking points that they share. This is true. They want these opportunities. And so that's so fascinating and really encouraging to see that in place.
Well, I think it makes it more enticing for parents with younger students to be like, okay, well, they could work at the pool, and you're not a lifeguard just sitting out there getting a tan. There are actual tangible things that you can walk away with that's going to make you better when you're done with that career than you were when you started. So
one thing that now, as I've been elected into this position as mayor, you look at things a lot differently, and one of them is the pool. Mm-hmm. That now, rather than this is a great community amenity, now I see all the risks, I see all the liabilities, but as I look at the pool now, one thing that really, I guess, creates more comfort is the fact that you really stress this need for training to make sure that your staff is capable and competent, that when and if an issue arises, that they've got the training to lean on. Yeah. So maybe talk a little bit about that.
We've done a really good job in the past of preparing our guards at the beginning of the season with an orientation, all of those sorts of things. We've done more of an emphasis this year on continuing education, for lack of a better term, of in-service trainings, and that's pretty common throughout the aquatic field. If you have a successful facility, you have a pretty successful training plan with your staff. Sure. Some of the challenges is getting the buy-in from your staff to attend those. So putting in place, putting in place incentives for them to want to come to those trainings, not just making it mandatory, but trying to make that learning process and that training process fun is an ongoing challenge. I stress to our staff every year, hopefully I don't offend anybody with this. I say, you have the most important job in the city of Tipton from May through August, more than a police officer, more than the mayor, with all due respect, because we have 18 to 20,000 people who come through our gates, and you are the face that they see that represents the city of Tipton, whether someone wants to move here, all of that. So, that all goes back to how safe people feel when they come to our facility. Yep, so sure. We've taken offline some programming things this season. We kind of backed away from the night swim programming that we've had in the past, and we've replaced those staffing hours in the form of training. And so every Saturday morning, if you're at the splash pad, you'll see our staff out there working pretty hard to refine those skills and prepare for anything.
Yeah. So my mind's going a lot of different directions. Yeah. I got a lot of questions I want to ask you, but I want to go back to, you mentioned attendance. Mm-hmm. So we have seen growing attendance, certainly, and now maybe my questions are melting together here, but we did a renovation project, and the addition of the splash pad really kicked off in 2019, completed in 2020. That has allowed attendance to grow, correct? So talk a little bit about that growth.
Yeah, we were in a position in 2019 where we had a lot of systems failing. The structural integrity of the gutters were crumbling, everything in the mechanical room. So we were really looking at, like I had spoken earlier, the situation that a lot of cities had looked at. Oh, we have an aging facility. What do we do? Do we bury it? Do we fill it in and move on? Or do we find fiscally responsible ways to rehabilitate it? Yeah. So there were a lot of discussions that took place when that happened. There was a discussion about filling in half the pool and creating like a multi-splash pad area in that. having the swim coach background, I knew I needed that space to train my athletes. And so I also knew that on busy days, we can fill a 50-meter pool up. So, there's some really smart investments made back in 2019 to make the pool sustainable for the next 20, 30 years, along with the splash pad expansion. That allowed us to add an amenity that did not additionally tax our staffing resources.
Sure.
It was also strategic with how we placed it, so that when the pool was not open to the public, whether on a offy rainy day or whether pre or post normal pool hours, it was an amenity that could be used by the public, much more than just the pool. So yeah, we've seen some pretty good growth. If I remember correctly, in 2019 we had about 12,000 people come through our door that summer, and like I said, 2023 we were right in the 19,000. Wow. Last year 18,000. We'll be somewhere in there as well this year. Sure. This year's kind of been a very busy year for us. I always try to look at our daily attendance averages to see how those have grown. Mm-hmm. In 2019 we were averaging about 120 people per day. Last year we were in the 270s, and right now we're hovering around the 350s.
Wow! So
that's a lot of people for a community pool to have come through their doors and to be responsible for.
Right.
So.
This might be a two-part question, because it somewhat feels like we're in this community pool renaissance, and maybe this is localized because we've seen projects. As we talked previously, Frankfurt had a project, mm-hmm. Kokomo's had a project, Noblesville's had a project, Elwood has a project. Is this a regional thing that we're just seeing, or is there a larger renaissance going on, this appreciation for municipal or community pools?
Yeah, I'd love to say that they looked at us and realized, no, I'm kidding.
We blazed a trail.
That's right.
We were the first. Were we the first?
We were kind of ahead of the game.
Can't remember Frankfurt's timeline, but...
And again, we did it in a relatively cost-effective way.
Yeah.
If you look at and good for the community, good for Elwood and good for Frankfurt for investing that much money into their facilities. I've got no qualms with that. Nope. But we, for how we maintained and sustained our facilities, it was relatively cost-effective.
Yeah.
The last piece of the puzzle is our bathhouse. It's an aging facility. It functions like it did in 1968 when it was put there. So that's something that there was a phase 3 of that original project that we'll probably get some eyes on it hopefully in the future. Right. But that's always the challenge of finding ways to progressively, manageable growth is one thing that Mayor Havens had said to me back in 2019 when we talked about it, and controlling the growth that we have. So I think we've done a good job with that from a city perspective.
Right, correct. This is some of the challenges, just to talk a little bit about, because this was a 3-phase project. Mm-hmm. Phase 1 was the renovation of the pool, making sure we stabilized it for the next 20 to 30 years. Right. The splash pad of phase 2, and that was more of a here's a new amenity that attracts more people without taxing the current staff.
That makes sense for us in this community.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
And then phase 3 was identified that, does the pool house work? Yes, it works. But there are some challenges with it, especially as we think about modern expectations, right?
Absolutely. We've got a very diverse group of individuals who come through our facility, and there are some limitations that our bathhouse presents to them from an ADA compliance standpoint, just from a flow standpoint. So, like we've said, Elwood has built an entirely new bathhouse. Frankfurt renovated their kind of historical building. But I definitely think that there are some benefits that members of our community, visitors to our community, would see with some improvements to that space in the future.
So jumping back to our daily averages are now 350 people.
Yep.
We also celebrated a historic day where
we did.
Not only did we exceed and set a new record for daily attendance, but this is it was hard to believe when it was posted out there.
It was hard to believe being on deck during that day.
I believe that.
I've been involved with the city pool in some capacity for about 20 years now, since 2004, which is crazy to think of. But, a couple years ago, 2023, we had a day where we had 663 people, and that felt like, whoa, that's a lot of people. We're maybe going to never eclipse that.
Right.
I had read articles from the 30s and 40s when there'd be 700, 800 people come through. Again, that was back when people didn't have cars to go to other communities. We had, I think, more children in our community at that time. But we knew that because it was a Sunday, and we knew that it was going to be incredibly hot that day.
Yes.
I had already prepped my staff on, hey, we're likely going to be breaking that 663 number. So we on the front end, we front-ended that by staffing 2 more guards for that day, changing our rotation, planning ahead for that, pulling some more people in for concessions. And as we opened, we had a line, which is kind of a great thing to have. It's a new thing that's been occurring. We had like 250 people within the facility within the first 30 minutes. And that was like, all right, buckle up, because it's going to be
10 people per minute.
It's going to be a day. We had 500 people in the facility within the first 2 hours. And, there is a capacity, and a lot of times that is based on the number of guards I have. The usage of the facility also. 500 people all in the water at one time is different than 500 people within the,
facility.
Exactly. Yeah. So, we just kind of, honestly, it self-regulated pretty well throughout the day. You'd have 100 people leave, 100 more people came in. We didn't have to put, any restrictions on that. But 924 people in one day. Yeah.
That is truly hard to comprehend.
It was pretty amazing. And, I always want to give credit, to my staff, because we had one instance of a kid needing to be assisted at slide, and that was it. Other than that, there were no problems that day.
Really?
Our patrons did a great job. Our staff did a great job. So who knows? Maybe one day we'll break 1,000.
Wow. So then maybe my last question that I have, and certainly I'll open it for you for anything I've missed, but as we think about daily attendance and the pool, like what opportunities then, how do we get to 1,000? How do we continue to, and I guess maybe another great question, and I've got 2 questions, these aren't just coming from Tipton.
Correct.
Right? This pool has become a regional amenity in light of Frankfurt's project,
right.
Kokomo's project, Elwood's project. So, not just from Tipton. How do we continue to maintain this success?
Yeah, I think it's a 2-part approach. I think one, we've got to continue to maintain what we do. I think, operationally there have been improvements to the pool, just in the way that the staff is either prepared or the staff interacts with guests. The other part is that patron experience, right? And, we hear a lot of compliments, and this is not by any means to start turf wars with other pools. I don't want to do that.
Right.
I have high respect for my colleagues. But we have a lot of people who come and say, oh, I was just at pool X the other day. It's so much nicer here. Your guards are so much more attentive here. The water's so much clearer here. So it's continuing to do the little things, but do the little things well. It does not take very long for a pool to fall off. And what I mean by that is it would take one bad summer of bad leadership or bad staffing for people to lose their faith and trust that this is a safe place to take my family or to relax. Or 1,000 would be a lot. 1,000 would be a lot of people. No doubt. But we've done a pretty good job of maintaining our operational hours. We've been open from 12 to 7 pretty much for over a decade now at least. Other pools have some more restrictive hours than that. I think another thing that we've done really well is our pricing. I mean, we're one of the cheaper pools in the area. We've had 2 price increases since I've kind of managed, and really that's just to keep us in line with from a budgetary standpoint. But it doesn't cost $8 to come to the Tipton pool. It costs $3. So there are not many. There's not a lot of fun that can be had with just $3 anymore.
Oh, no doubt.
So and that's that community aspect I think that we've talked about. So,
yeah. Was there anything I've missed, Steven, as it relates to the pool? Things that we should be communicating? Have we covered already?
No, an area that I'm looking to kind of expand is programmatically. We had swim lessons this year. We had about 80 kids enroll in swim lessons. We're looking at changing that formatting for future seasons to allow for more individuals. Sure. That registration met capacity within a week's time, so that filled up pretty quickly. And trying to just do some other creative programming. Years ago, when we launched a night swim, that was creative, and it kind of lost its luster after a while. But finding ways to do, whether it's a dive-in movie. I know they're doing movies at the park now.
Exactly what I just thought about.
Dive-in movies would be great. Something where they could pre-register for that, so we have a controllable amount of people. Yep. Doing some more special event type things possibly in the evening is something else we're looking at. Setting aside a time for individuals with disabilities or differently abled people to come in and not be overwhelmed by 500 other people.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Or having a night time set aside for a dad and daughter only, sort of exclusive event. So there are definitely some opportunities there to just continue to foster, growth and involvement. And I always want citizens of Tipton to feel like they are proud of the pool that is, a cornerstone of their community. So I think we've done that, and my goal is to keep doing that.
That's fantastic. So I'm already playing in my head. We're going to preview Jaws at the city pool.
Yes.
We're going to figure out how to dye the pool red. We'll get the details figured out. Okay. Steven, I want to thank you. This is certainly I appreciate and acknowledge the importance of a pool. Just being a kid myself and going to the pool at WinMac, that's where I learned how to swim. Yeah. That was our summer activity. So to see that my community has lost that up there it was really heartbreaking for the community. But here in Tipton, we're very proud to have this facility, and I'm looking forward to continued success and leadership out there from you and your staff. So thank you for today.
Absolutely.
And we'll just stay tuned to the pool and
figure
out how we can continue to make this successful.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.